So I'd like us to talk about the issue of choices. We're always making choices, whether choices about our emotions, about our mindset, or physical choices, our job, where to live, who to marry, etc., etc. We're always making choices. Here's the thing. You're either making choices intentionally or choices are being made for you by default. Even indifference is a choice. Sitting on the fence goes beyond not making a choice. You are making a choice not to make one, if you understand what I mean. By sitting on the fence, you are saying you go with whatever choice is made by every other person or any other person. And so, even indifference or sitting on the fence is a choice. We are always making choices in life. You either make them intentionally or they are being made for you by default. So let me share a few things about making choices. Number one, we have to take responsibility for the choices that we make, whether good or bad. Nobody is responsible for our choices or our decisions in life. They're up to us. There were times when we were too young to make our own choices and we were products of our parents' choices. But the minute you gain understanding, the minute you can understand that your parents made the wrong choice, you can make a choice to turn things around. You can start making your own choices to change the outcome of your life. Nobody is responsible for your choices in life. You can't blame your parents. You can't blame anybody. You can't blame your spouse. You can't blame your children. It's you who is responsible for the choices or the decisions that you take in life, no matter how difficult they were, whether wrong or right. Which brings me to the second point. Now, doing the right thing or making the right choice does not always guarantee a palatable outcome. You may not like the outcome of the choice that you made, even though it was the right choice or you took a good decision at the time. Doesn't mean you're always going to like the outcomes. Let me give us a popular story that we may all know. If you read the Bible, you would know the story of Joseph. And at a point, he was being seduced by his boss's wife, but he refused and he ran out of the house. She grabbed his cloth and she accused him falsely. Did he make the right choice? Definitely he made the right choice not to cheat on his boss by sleeping with his wife. But where did he end up? In prison. He ended up in prison for several years because of making a good choice. So doing the right thing does not always mean that you're going to enjoy the outcomes. Sometimes good choices come with difficult consequences or repercussions, and you're going to have to live with those. It doesn't mean you should make the wrong choice, but you just need to understand that. This brings me to my third point about making choices. Ultimately, choices go far beyond just the physical results. They are more about your values, your intrinsic values, your personal values, your internal satisfaction, and your conscience, what you can live with in the long term. These are far more important than the physical results of your choices. If you made a choice and things didn't go right, but you have personal satisfaction in the choice that you made, that is far more important and valuable many times than the actual choice that you made or the actual results of the choice that you made. Now, the thing is, if you continually violate your conscience, your values, and your personal satisfaction, you will end up losing yourself and living a very miserable life in the long term. And that is why making choices or taking decisions is a very important skill that we need to master. We need to be intentional about it. Now, I'd like to speak about some important things to note when you are making choices. How do you make choices? So the first thing is that when you are making a choice, never look at the now or the obvious to make the choice. Choices usually go far beyond the surface. There's always something underneath. And this is true even for mundane choices. Even for regular, simple choices, this is true. Much more for important life choices. Never look just on the surface or just at the now. Consider the long term or look beneath the surface to see what is there. There's always something more to the choice that you are making than just that. This is usually called the principle of delayed gratification. Usually you end up with better results or better satisfaction from delayed gratification over impulsive choices. So I was speaking to someone recently and she needed to take a decision to move her business from her home, and she felt like she was under pressure to do that. She found a place, and even though she did not really like that place, she felt like I need to move immediately, and she moved into that place. Less than 6 months down the line, she was regretting it because it wasn't serving her. Now, that can be remedied maybe, but in speaking about it, I realized that it's not so easy. It's going to cost her a lot of money. She has spent a lot of money. She has lost a lot, or she has spent a lot putting that place in shape. Upping and moving out is going to be another expense on her. Well, you may say that, well, at least it's just money. But sometimes we even make more important life decisions based on the pressure of the moment. It is a common thing to do. I've seen people who married somebody when they saw red flags because they were feeling the pressure of the moment. And then years down the line, they are complaining about the very things that they saw in the first place. You cannot afford to make decisions based on the present pressure or the present feelings. You have to consider the long term. And these are some tips to note in how you can do that. Number one, have an end in mind. Have a goal or a vision that guides you. This is what I want things to look like. This will create a why for you, and it will help you to make choices that will serve you in the long term because you have a vision. So once you see something that is not serving the vision or does not fit into your end goal, then you are less likely to be pressured to make that decision in the moment because you have made that, you've sat down and thought about it ahead. You have a vision already, a clear vision in your head. And so when the pressure comes, you have a reason why you cannot just bulk in. You have a reason why you are working towards a particular end, and it makes it a bit easier, sometimes a lot easier to stick with the vision because you have thought about it and you have a strong why. You are more likely to make decisions that will serve you in the long term. Number two, set boundaries. Have boundaries, physical boundaries, moral boundaries, spiritual boundaries that you will not cross or you will not compromise no matter how much the pressure. It is not in the moment that you set those boundaries. You would have set those boundaries far before you ever have to make the decision. And so there are important areas of your life that you can think about, things like marriage, things like finances, things like your job or your career path, things like your children, things like that. You can think around those general ones. But even as you live your life, there are some choices that are peculiar to you as a person and not peculiar to everyone else. So let's say somebody is a sickle cell carrier. You're not facing the same challenges as me, who is AA. And so you have to set certain boundaries in place so that you would have handled those things before getting into it, and the pressure of the moment now becomes too much for you to handle. Have moral boundaries, have spiritual boundaries, have physical boundaries, have mental boundaries that you will not cross and you will not compromise on. This will make it easier to filter your options quickly so that you are left with good options. You filter out the bad or poor options quickly so that you are left with only good options, and it makes your decision-making process easier. Thirdly, you need to beware when the choice is not between options that are very good and options that are very bad. Usually that's not difficult. When something is obviously wrong and something is obviously right, it's easy to choose. Beware when the options are between what is good and what is better. That's when it becomes tricky. And that is when you have to reach within yourself. Do you need something bigger than you, something stronger than you, something beyond the physical, because you can't really tell the outcome. I remember when I had 2 job options. I was already in a job and I was earning well and I was enjoying the job. But shortly after, less than a month into that job, I got another offer that was equally as good on paper. It was a good long-term job. People who had been in that company had been there for several years. Now, the first company was a new, more modern company, less traditional, more exciting, less bureaucracy and all that. But the new one was a trusted company where people had been in for long. So I was torn between those 2 options. It's not an easy choice to make. And they were offering me both about the same salary. The one where I told my boss and I said, this is what I'm going through, because he was like a mentor already. And he said, it's up to you to make, but I would love you to stay. And I went to the new job and I said, well, I'm already working. I have a job and I'm kind of torn. And he said, well, it's up to you to make, but we would really love you to come here. I was torn. Now, that option is not between a bad job and a good job. It's between 2 great jobs, and I was just torn. In that case, you have to reach into something beyond yourself, because nobody can really give you the advice. Everybody's going to be giving you conflicting advice. Somebody will say, oh, this, based on my judgment, this is nice. Somebody else will say, oh, based on my judgment, this is nice. My parents couldn't help me. Nobody could help me. And that's where your spirituality comes in. Remember the video where we spoke about spiritual strength and having spiritual capacity? This is where it comes in. What is God saying to you? God knows more than today. He can see the future. He sees what's going to happen tomorrow. He can see what's going to happen 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line. So in that case, you need that kind of spiritual insight to guide you. It goes beyond what you can physically say. In those kind of cases, you have to beware, because you cannot even tell where things are going. And whatever choice you make, you're going to have to live with the consequences in the long term. And so you have to be careful when the choice is between 2 great or 2 good options. That is when you really have to take care. Remember, at that time, you have to go spiritual. Look within yourself. Look to God to guide you, because that's the only way that you can choose right at such times. The 4th point in making choices is that you should have a trusted group of people that can help you, especially when you're under pressure. Friends and mentors, you need them. Don't be a loner. Have mentors, have friends. I'm not talking about a big group. I'm talking about a small, closed group of people that you can go to and that you can trust to help you make the right choices. And there are criteria for choosing these people. Number 1, choose people that have a balanced and objective view. Don't choose people that are very emotional and will make emotional choices for you. I've seen people whose closest friends will tell them, choose this guy, Joe. This guy is fine. This guy has money. I remember once I was very young and my friend's older brother was interested in me, and she kept practically pushing me into it. I didn't really like him. Yeah, he was my friend's older brother and I liked him like that. But, to enter a relationship with him, I wasn't really feeling it. But I didn't know how to say no, because I'm talking about my closest friends. We were 3 best friends. And this was one of them. I ended up in that relationship. It was a very silly relationship. I was like 17 or 18 at the time. It was like an extremely silly relationship, because I only entered it because I couldn't say no to my friend's brother. And she was like, my brother is this, he's that. And it was just so awkward, because when he came around, we had nothing to talk about. He'd just be smiling at me and I'd just be smiling at him, and I had nothing to say to him. And it was just so awkward and weird. So you need people that you can trust to help you make mature and balanced decisions. People who are not emotional, people who will give you the right advice, who will be able to look you in the face and say, Ife or Tosin or Shola, do the right thing. This is what you need to do. I know how you are feeling right now, but put that aside and look at things this way. Those are the kind of people you need in your life. Now, the second criteria is that you need people who will give you good advice. See, there are friends who give bad advice. There are mentors too who give bad advice. Choose people who will give you good advice, trusted advice, godly advice, not people who will just lead you down the broad path and take you to all kinds of places. I've seen people who maybe they couldn't have children or something, and people are taking them to all sorts of fetish places just to get children. And because it's a trusted person, that is where the person is leading them and taking advantage of their emotions and their trust at that point. Be careful. Have people that will give you godly advice, that you know that this person, I can trust their advice. Even under pressure, they won't, they can look at the situation objectively and they won't give me wrong advice. Not people who you're having marital issues and they're singing. The first thing is, get out of the place, get out of the place. Please, let me just say this here because it came up in my mind. If you're going through physical abuse of any kind, violence, and you're being physically abused, please get out. First, to save your life. It's only when you're alive that we can talk about saving the marriage. Please get out. But there are situations that are not as dire as that, and some people, the only advice they have is marriage is to be enjoyed, not endured. If you're not enjoying it, please get out. That's always their first advice. That's always their go-to advice. Be wary of such people. Sometimes the advice is not coming from a good place. So make sure that your trusted people are people whose decisions you can trust, and you would have chosen them way ahead when there's no pressure, so that when you're under pressure, you're not forced to talk to just anybody. You need people who genuinely love you and will back you up, be there for you, even if you mess up, even if things don't turn out right in the end. You don't want people who are going to judge you and criticize you and backstab you because you didn't take their advice and things didn't end up right. You need people who can be there for you. Those are the people you can trust. Of course, as much as possible, weigh your choices. Ultimately, the choice is yours to make, not anybody's decision. And you need people who can trust you enough and tell you that at the end of the day, it's your choice to make. And you know that even if I take that choice and things don't turn out the way I expected, these people will not backstab me. I can still find a safe space in those people. That's what I came here to talk about today. I really hope you learned something from this. My name is Fagbeja, and I want you to thrive in every area of your life. We have a community of vibrant women where we share thoughts, where we have interesting activities, and where we have a safe space where women can air their minds, ask questions, and get taught. It's called the Valiant Women's Community, and the link to join is in the description below. Don't forget to like this video, to share it with somebody, and definitely, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and do leave a comment telling me your greatest takeaway from this video. Till I come your way again. Ciao.